That seems to be the way that we can do this, just coming out of the music, and then we're just talking about something. I don't know how that works, you know?
Yeah. But it is the unofficial start of summer now. We're in June. Finally, yes.
Past Memorial Day was like early this year.
Was it?
Well, I mean, kind of. It was like there was like almost a whole week of May after Memorial Day, which was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's the unofficial start.
And most schools are out, but it seems like every year that I'm farther and farther away from school, I kind of like lose touch on like when schools let out, because now there's no snow days. Everything's virtual whenever they're.
Well, that's going to change for you in about 4 years.
I know. I'll have a really good handle on it. Yeah, you're right.
And then for the next like 18, you're going to be right on top of all that stuff again.
Yeah.
At least the next 18. We'll say it that way.
But,
I don't know. I don't know how that's going to go for you. I don't know what you guys' plans are.
I'm not. I'm not the guy that would kick a child out of the house.
Yeah,
my parents didn't do that to me. So
no. I meant if there was a brother or a sister or something that came after that. I didn't mean you were going to
fly. Kick you out of the nest. Yeah.
No. I just meant if you had others behind there, it would last.
So it could be more longer.
It would last longer.
Yeah. Okay. I understand now.
Yeah. So yes, and then summer goes until what always gets me is that summer actually goes until almost the end of September. But by then everybody's already eating pumpkin spice everything and all that stuff. So
yeah, once the kids go back to school, once Labor Day happens, really, I mean that's pretty much the end of summer.
I think everybody pretty much assumes it's Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then So I see you have a piece of paper. What do you have? What's on your slice of paper there?
So I asked the internet, what are some financial questions that people were asking, and it surprisingly didn't come back with a whole bunch of like banking questions. I assumed it was going to be like, what's a CD? What's a money market? It was more of like,
what is the money market? No, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, so it was more like, and we'll just run through these too. So it was like a would you rather, or so the first one, would you rather make more money or have more free time? Well, they're all financial related. Let's put it that way.
Okay. More money or more free time?
Yeah.
I think that for me they kind of go together. I can't enjoy my free time if I don't have money to go do things, right? So I guess it depends on what you want to do with your free time.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it is. There's a comedian out there that asked the question, what would you do if you won the lottery? And someone says, well, if I won the lottery, I'd sit on the beach all day and not do anything. And he's like, well, you don't have to win the lottery to sit on the beach all day and do nothing.
That's true. Yeah,
you can pretty much do that for free. The problem is at the end of the day, whenever you want to go home and take a shower, you kind of need money to be able to do that. Or if you want to eat food or something.
Yeah. How sustainable is that?
So it's sitting on the beach doing nothing doesn't cost anything. But yeah,
that's a good take on it. Mine would be like, it depends on the stage of your life. Now that I'm a father, I want more time. But if I was saving up for something big, if I had a mortgage, I'd want more money.
I think for me, if you want to get philosophical about it, time is way more valuable because you can't you don't know how much you have of it.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where we all assume that our bank account of time is full and that we have an unlimited amount of it, but in reality you don't.
Right.
And so
you can always make more money.
You can make more money, but you can't make more time. Yeah. So I'm gonna go with time.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a good one then. Yeah. What's one purchase under $100 that changed your life?
Ooh. That's a really good question. Under $100.
And if you need time to think, since I have the paper in front of me, I did go through this and have some answers for myself.
Okay, well, go ahead. Okay, so all right, what's yours?
One purchase under $100 that changed my life. So one that I guess would have changed my life. The sports coat that I wore to my interview to this bank. So wearing nice clothes, I assumed would help me get a job. Okay, so that sport coat I probably bought at
and
JC
then you started working here.
And working here and realized, yeah,
right. No,
but I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure I got something. I'm a sales guy, so I'm sure I went to JC Penney's or Boscov's or something and got a sport coat on sale for $99.99 or whatever they are. Yeah. So, and that would have changed my life because I wasn't currently working at the time, so it changed my life. Another one that I thought of that wasn't the case for me, but like entrance fees for kids going to college.
Yeah,
that would be a good one. That would change your life.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was literally going to say probably the $100 that I spent to like put my application into college.
Yeah,
because not that I'm a person that thinks that I'm not the kind of person that thinks that if you don't have a degree, degrees are a means to an end.
Right.
I mean, they're just, and especially in today's world, I would say that when 49 out of 50 people have a degree of some sort, it really just gets you put in the right bin. When your resumes come in, you're still fighting against 48 other people instead of 49 other people. If the 1 out of 50 gets thrown in the garbage because they don't have a degree,
right? But your path in life might have looked a little bit different if you didn't go to college.
But it definitely would have. It definitely would have. So I mean, something like that is true. I also come from an era where $100 was worth more. I mean, like, I think
that's true. That's true.
So
maybe that should have been reworded a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, because today, my gosh, you can spend $100 at the grocery store without even thinking about it.
Yeah,
I mean, but
we went to Walmart on Friday. We do our grocery shopping. It's a little side story on Fridays. Yeah. That's like our date night now. We go out and go grocery shopping. But yeah, like
the joys of the married life.
We spent like $150 or $200, and we got the essentials. We got like cat litter, cat food, nothing for us.
Yeah, right.
Like condiments or like baby formula. So like essential stuff. But we were like, what are we going to eat tonight?
Meanwhile, you're eating Lucky Charms. And it's like, Yeah, so that's but you're right. I mean, sometimes it doesn't take a whole lot to change your life. I mean, it's a little bit of a spin on that, but I can say that it wasn't spending $100, but it was making $100. I think. So I started my professional career, my job career, like washing dishes at a local steakhouse and stuff like that. And so while I was working there was an electronics chain that people over 40 will remember called Circuit City.
I shopped at Circuit City. I'm 35. So,
okay. Yeah. But Circuit City, which was not the Circuit City that it is now, apparently somebody bought the name and is trying to reboot it. But back then it was a huge electronics retailer. And I got a job there, and I was 18, 19 years old. And I sold, my first big sale was like 2 weeks in, and I sold like a big screen TV and a home theater system and stuff. And I made probably a little over $100 at the time on that sale. And I made more on that sale in that hour than I would have made in 2 days working in the dish room at the steakhouse. And so I left the steakhouse. I came over there full time and I've always been an electronics geek, but I mean, then it was really hardcore. And all my money went right back into buying stuff there. Wow. I mean, it was, so, and I learned sales and I learned how to talk with people. So that made a big difference for me. For sure.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. So should friends split bills evenly if one person earns way more?
Oh, well, okay. So are we talking dinner or are we talking roommates?
Ooh.
Because there's a big difference.
I was assuming dinner.
Yeah. I mean, my thought is if two friends go out to dinner, you each pay your own way. I mean, you pay. So okay. I shouldn't have to pay for 30% of your dinner if I make 30% more than you do.
Okay.
Right. But if we're talking roommates, then yeah, probably if somebody makes significantly more money, maybe they kick in a little more extra for the household budget.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't think about the roommate side of it. Yeah. Mine was more of, well, if you made a heck of a lot more than I did, and you wanted to go to, this fancy steakhouse, but I didn't want to, and you said, "Oh no, I'll pay," or let's go. Then I'd probably let you, pay a little bit more.
That's true. I mean, I would agree with that.
If it was a mutual decision to go to some fancy restaurant, then yeah, I would expect you to pay, and I would pay the same amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good point. If there was an episode of Friends like that.
Was there? I'm not a Friends fan, but yeah.
We can't seriously.
We can't be friends over Friends. Okay, sorry.
No, but there was an episode of Friends like that. I remember because it was one of those things where 3 of them were doing pretty well. Like one was a chef, and one was he worked in a museum, and one was working for some big like fashion outlet or something like that. And the other three, like one was like a struggling musician, one was a struggling actor. And so they would go out to dinner, and the three that were making decent money were always ordering big meals. And the other ones were like splitting a salad, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it depends on whose idea it was too. If I make a lot of money and I say, hey, let's go to this thing, and you sort of come along for the ride. I mean, you're right. I think that matters for sure.
Yeah. What financial habits did you learn from your parents?
I learned both good things and bad things from my parents, I think, from a financial standpoint.
Okay.
So, you know, I think this is a product of the time you live in to some degree. You know, when I was younger, you know, my parents, they never really wanted to. They didn't put a whole lot of restrictions on my sister and I. I mean, like it was, if we needed something or we wanted something, we were pretty fortunate to be able to get it within reason.
Yeah. So you weren't an allowance family, you know, where you got a certain amount every week to go towards.
They tried the allowance thing, and then it didn't really stick. It was sort of like
we weren't an allowance family either. Really.
Yeah, it wasn't really a thing. But my sister and I also tended to not, like, I think both of us were pretty self-aware that our family was not like uber rich.
Okay.
So neither one of us was constantly asking for stuff. And my parents, rather than an allowance per se, my parents, I think, showed me the value of hard work. So if we were helping around the house and we were doing things together, and my parents were usually out there with us doing it. So it wasn't like they often said, well, now you go weed the lawn and I'm going to sit here on the deck and watch. Like they were usually out there doing stuff with us, you know.
Yeah. We were more of, you didn't earn money, you earned things. Like, so if I remember I wanted an iPod Touch when they were first, you know.
Yeah.
So it was like, hey, you got to do this. And if you do all this stuff in this amount of time, you know, then you get an iPod Touch type thing. Yeah.
That sounds very familiar to sort of the vibe that I had growing up, you know. So I think I learned the value of hard work is what it came down to. I think I learned from them from a financial standpoint that the work you put in equals what you earn. Like, that would be probably what I would say, is just that you're going to get what you work for, or what you put into it.
Okay.
How about you?
Yeah, it was more for like credit cards and living within your means. Like they would always harp, you know, don't overspend, pay off your credit cards in full on time. I mean, they like scared me into like having bad credit, you know, a bad credit score before I could even have a credit score. So that always stuck with me, and that's carried through to this day. And I'm very responsible with
now.
credit.
Now were they, because that could go two ways. Were they super responsible?
They
like
were
that?
super responsible.
Okay, because there are parents out there that might teach them the same thing, because like,
it wasn't
don't
do
be
as
like
I say, not as I do type
Yeah.
thing. No. My parents were both very, very responsible with money. My dad will tell stories of, you know, like managing his family's like investments when he was, you know, as in college, and I mean, like, he was always very good with money. So I was very blessed to have someone who knew a lot about finance.
Yeah. Well, you have business people in your family. You had a family business, not directly, not your dad, right? But you, and like my dad was self-employed,
right,
and has been for 6 years now, 54 years now. But so a lot of that came from that too. The idea of, listen, you don't spend what you don't earn, you know, that sort of thing, you know, as much as possible. Now, to be fair, when you have two kids and sometimes you got to break out the credit card. Sometimes it happens.
Sure,
you know what I mean? But in an ideal world, you spend, you know, what you earn, you know, that sort of thing, for sure. Yeah.
We've talked about this one several times before. Are subscriptions quietly draining everyone's bank account?
Yes.
No hesitation on that one.
No, not for me anyway.
Yeah, you know, the sad part is that like and that's another question farther down the list. But like I'm constantly looking at my credit card bills and my bank accounts just to make sure there's no fraud or anything on it. And I'm guilty of it. I'll see that a charge has gone up for a subscription, and I'm like, I'll I'll call them next month, and I'll never call. And by the time, 6 months rolls around, all of my subscriptions are up significantly higher.
Yep.
And,
well, and what kills you is they go up $2.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not a big deal.
So
right
you're
now.
like, well, okay, I'm not going to cancel this over $2. Right. But then when 6 of them go up by $2, now all of a sudden it's an extra $12 a month or whatever it ends up. It's just, so you're right. It's those micro charges.
It's like doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
How much should people spend on weddings? We're in that season right now.
Yeah, we are in that season right now. So I'm probably a terrible person to ask this question of, and I'll tell you why. I am terrible at parties. Okay. I'm just not good at them. I'm not good at planning them. Okay. I'm not a big fan of attending them. So, when it comes to parties, it's just, I didn't grow up with a party. My parents were not like people that had people over all the time.
Oh, neither were mine.
Even my grandparents, things like that. Like, I remember going out to dinner for my grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. Mm-hmm. That was probably the only time that we ever did something kind of like we weren't really big on like, oh, well, it's somebody's, if we went to birthday, it was like, okay, well, where do you want to go out to eat or something like that for a birthday, and it wasn't like an entire huge family party. It was just me and my immediate family, and we'd go out and get something to eat, so when it comes to things, so weddings obviously are a big deal. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people really want to make those a big deal. I think maybe the younger you are, the more important the wedding is.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Maybe.
Yeah, I got married in a little bit older, and it was still a big deal, but it was more, I'd rather it be more intimate with like family as opposed to like inviting the whole neighborhood and all my high school friends and everything.
Yeah.
We had,
I don't need my mom's optometrist there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, we did have our parents kind of like, tell us who their friends that they would like to invite. Right. And so, but within reason. I would think we had 110 or 115 people at our wedding. So it was a medium-sized wedding.
Yeah.
And price definitely is by location. Like Johnstown where we live, it's reasonable. I think we spent like $8,000 or something like that on our entire wedding. Yeah. Whereas like I've had relatives that have spent nearly that much just on the photographer.
It definitely.
It's definitely, and I'm talking like Pittsburgh and larger areas, and it depends on the venue and but the trend now is the younger, like you had said, like it's not as important for the younger generation, or it's more important for the younger generations.
I always thought it kind of was,
now,
but
actually,
really,
yeah, because now all these younger kids, these Gen Z kids and everything, they want they put their money towards the honeymoon more than the wedding, because they figure, okay, the wedding's a few hours and that's it, whereas my honeymoon, I'm going to spend a week in Cabo, so
do you think that's, I'm not trying to be critical, I'm just asking, do you think that's because it feels like the younger generation is a little more self-important?
I don't know.
Cause I mean, there's that stigma, and I don't know if it's earned or not, but there's a stigma that this younger generation is sort of like the me generation, And so it's like, I'm not going to spend money for a party for all of my friends and relatives. I'm going to spend it on me.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I know. I didn't think of it like that. I thought of it more as like, the younger generation doesn't necessarily want to share their wedding photos, but their photos of them partying on a beach in the Bahamas is a little more appealing to all their friends. Are going to get more likes and clicks, and
true.
I don't know.
You could also look at it from the perspective of when it comes to spending, because a lot of times it's the parents spending the money.
True. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how important is it to you as a parent to give your child, and let's be honest, it's probably your daughter, right? A big wedding. Yeah. Versus, versus not, so, and it really should come from them, like what they would rather.
Right.
But some people, they live vicariously through their kids, and it's like, no, you're going to have a $20,000 wedding, whether you want it or not.
But then again too, and I think this now that you had said that, it kind of makes a little sense on my situation too. Like the older you are, you understand that your parents' money is finite too, and Mom, Dad, I don't want you to go all out for my wedding, so maybe a little more conservative,
Yeah. And I think that statistically, I think that from an objective standpoint, people are getting married older.
They are, yeah.
They're not getting married at 19 or 20 or 22 anymore as often as they were even 30 or 40 years ago. I remember within my family, my grandmother, she graduated high school, and then I think it was a week or two after she graduated high school, she got married to my grandfather. I mean, it was that fast. It was like she was 18.
But it's all financially driven now, because you get out of high school and you go to college, then you're in debt for how long after? So you need to get your career started to pay off that debt before you even think about buying a house and getting married and having kids. I mean, there's a lot of steps that are involved now before you even get married that you really consider that you didn't have to consider, 50 years ago.
True. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I agree with you.
Would you loan money to a family or friends?
Would I loan money to family or friends? Yes. Okay. I would. However, and this is going to make me sound really, I don't know, like pious or something like that. And I don't mean it to sound that way.
Yeah.
But I genuinely believe unless it's some ridiculous amount of money, which I rarely have available to lend anyway, right, in terms of large amounts of money. I've always been the type of person that if I loan you something, I don't necessarily expect it back.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Okay. I mean, like, going back to that conversation that we had with the about friends going to dinner.
Okay.
Right. I mean, there were definitely times when I was making more money than some of my friends, especially when I was commission sales and I would have a really great month or something like that. And we'd go out and somebody would be like, I'm a little short. And I would give them, I would say, I'll pick it up. Whatever. I never expected them to be like, oh, I'll get you back next time. It didn't bother me.
Yeah.
Now if I loaned you $1,000, I'd probably expect to have it back. And like, my dad's famous thing was never lend money to family or clergy. And it's because it's so difficult to actually ask for it back.
Yeah.
At that point, it's like, how do you go to your minister and be like, hey, listen, I need that money. Back, that I loaned you, so, would I do it? Yeah, I think it also depends on, like, are we talking distant family?
Yeah,
or are we talking like your sister?
I've never had to lend money to my family or friends.
I've been fortunate. I never have either.
So I mean, I've watched enough Judge Judy that if it was over a certain amount, I'd get like something signed saying, hey, you owe me this much by this date or what, whatever.
Right.
But I've never been in that situation. But I would, to a degree, if I had extra money.
I mean, I think it sounds like for both of us, but for me, this is more of a hypothetical. I cannot honestly remember a time in my life, and I'm old enough now to say that that's a pretty significant amount of time that I've never had the occasion to have to do that, at least not in any significant amount.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. What's something expensive that's actually worth money?
I'll let you go first. What do you got?
Land. They don't make any more land.
Real estate.
Yes. Yeah. A house, homes. Some would argue a nice watch is actually worth the money, Those are my three.
Your turn. Yeah, no, I agree with land, and I would say expensive. What was the question again exactly? It was
something expensive that's actually worth
the money. Yeah. So I would say things that are likely to appreciate in value rather than depreciate in value.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, if you're the type of person that just absolutely loves cars, and there are people out there, lots of them, myself included, that really love cars, and if you're that type of person, but a car is worth something to you.
Yeah.
I would argue it's not necessarily worth it.
Right.
Objectively speaking, when you drive a new car off the lot, you lose like 30% of the value, like in the first week. Yeah. Like it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
So homes, real estate, things like that for sure.
But if it makes your quality of life better and makes you happier, then it's worth like you said, something to you.
Right. And I think that's, I think that's true of a lot of us. I think there are people that, there are things that I would invest money in that other people would think I was crazy. If you said to me like, oh, you know what, Drew, you could pick up I don't know, a piece of china that was brought up from the Titanic, I'd be like, cool.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah.
But there's a lot of people out there that would think that was crazy to spend that kind of money on that. So it depends on what it's worth to you.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
How much emergency saving is enough?
I don't know. What do they say? They say you should have like
3 to
6 months of being able to pay your bills, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, and we know from our research in other episodes that most people don't even have that.
Right. But what's that include? That's your utilities, insurance, food, mortgage if you have a mortgage, or any loans,
rent.
Yeah.
But I think it depends. It goes back to your credit card thing. Like there are a lot of people out there who have a lot of credit card debt.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have the credit card debt, there's a lot of people that could live on a lot less.
Sure. Yeah.
In terms of their income and so forth, and could be saving more.
Yeah.
It's so how much do you have? I mean, I would say the expert. I'll go with the experts and say 3 to 6 months of living expenses.
Yeah, I wouldn't go less than 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you never know in today's age, finding a job, if you lose a job, and finding a job is not as necessarily easy as it was 20 years ago.
That's very true. And it also speaks to people who I believe get trapped in jobs that they are miserable in. But they have no choice but to continue on because they're stuck in terms of their money. Like if you're fortunate enough to have 6 months, 9 months of living expenses saved up, and something happens where your job changes, the company changes, your boss changes, for whatever reason, all of a sudden, like you're just miserable every day when you wake up in the morning. It'd be nice to have that ability to just say, okay, you know what, this isn't for me anymore. And to be able to look for another job while not feeling like you're under the pressure of, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent next month.
Yeah. Right.
So,
should teenagers be required to take personal finance classes?
I think so.
Yes. Yeah. We didn't learn too much about finance in like high school. The most we learned was like how to write a check.
Which is less and less relevant every day.
I know, yeah. But that was, and like I said, luckily I have parents that were, had good financial knowledge,
Yeah.
So it was not as bad for me, but I think that teenagers should be required to take some sort of, whether it's an online class or it's through your school, definitely.
I think most teenagers would probably argue that they wish they had more financial education. I mean, we read about that all the time too. Like they may not necessarily come out and say like, oh, I wish I would have taken a particular course, but by
the time they're in their 20s and 30s, they wish that they would have taken that course.
Well, at the very least, I think a lot of them wish that they understood more about. There are lots of people that don't understand what is on their paycheck stub.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand what taxes they're paying. They don't understand, how their medical insurance works.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not necessarily their fault. They just weren't taught.
Yeah.
I know that personally, I went through school and I got trigonometry and I got calculus and I got, but I think I might have gotten 1 6-week course on basic budgeting, and I can guarantee you I use the basic budgeting way more than I ever use calculus or trigonometry.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I think that
you don't use differential equations every day?
I do not.
Okay.
Just every other day.
Every other day. Okay.
I think that what it comes down to is, I think we've lost sight in some ways of what public school or high school or whatever is supposed to be. Like, to me, I always felt that kind of schooling was supposed to prepare you for the basics in life.
Mm-hmm.
And we've sort of turned it into college prep.
Yeah.
Where every school feels like they have to give you all of these different, AP courses and calculus and trigonometry and advanced placement English and all this stuff. And, but it's also because and it's no wonder that we constantly tell our kids, you got to go to college, instead of, why don't we talk more about trade schools? Why don't we, there are people out there that are waiting months for a plumber. because
there's nothing around. Yeah.
Right. We've spent an entire generation or two telling everybody, don't be a plumber, go to college. When
that's very true.
Yeah. So, I think, they could definitely use that.
Very true.
Yeah.
Let's skip ahead. If you had suddenly received $10,000, what would you do with it?
I'd probably pay down debt. I'd put it toward my house or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I'd buy a shed. I really wanted a shed.
Yeah. So you'd pay down debt. If you had no debt, you'd build up your emergency fund.
Sure. Yeah.
If you'd already had an emergency fund, put it into something that's going to make you a little bit more money, possibly, or
investment. Yeah.
Unless you needed some liquid money, and then
you keep saying you. What would you do?
I'm saying you as a hypothetical. This is what you would do. Not you. I'm pointing.
You're terrible with money.
You would, as in you, the viewer. What you should do. I'm going to say should do because we're not experts, but. That's what I would do.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And again, I really hate to keep belaboring this point because to people like to $10,000 to me is a lot of money.
It is to me too. Yes.
But it's also not as much as it used to be. Sure. I mean, I bought my first car for $700. I bought my first nice car for like $3,000. Yeah. So, and now, the last time that my wife and I went out and we bought a used car, it was $17,000 for a used car.
I'm still looking for one. Yeah.
So, $10,000 is a lot of money, but it's not like life-changing money. Yeah. You know what I mean? I can't quit my job if somebody hands me $10,000.
No, it can make things easier for you. Yeah.
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 All right.
I mean, we can keep going, or how long have we been going?
I don't know. Are people bored? Well, tell us in the comments. Are you bored now, or should we keep going?
Yeah, and answer any of these questions in the comments too. Give us your opinion on these.
Yeah, we can save a few.
Yeah,
let's save a few. Let's because this is fun. I like this, and I think it is sort of opinion driven.
Yeah,
but it is financially relevant. So yeah, let's hold a few back, and maybe we'll do another one of these, and maybe some people, if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on any number of podcast platforms, leave us a comment, drop us a text, let us know what you want us to cover, because we kind of do this a little bit in the dark to some degree. And to your point, we don't
get a lot of feedback.
Yeah. And you're pulling this stuff from Google and we're making the assumption that these are things that people want to hear about. But if you're listening to this on a regular basis, and we know there have to be at least a few that are listening to this or watching this on a regular basis, because we get enough views to know that there are some people, some feedback would be really fantastic to let us know more about what you want to hear about and what we can cover for you.
Yeah.
So, I just realized we're both wearing green.
We are both wearing green. Yes.
It's the color of money.
It's not even the color of our bank. Huh?
No, it's not. But it is the color of money.
It is the color of money.
Why not?
Hey, happy summer.
Happy summer.
Thanks, Drew. This podcast focuses on having valuable conversations on various topics related to banking and financial health. The podcast is grounded in having open conversations with professionals and experts with the goal of helping to take some of the mystery out of financial and related topics, as learning about financial products and services can help you make more informed financial decisions. Please keep in mind that the information contained within this podcast and any resources available for download from our website or other resources relating to Bank Chats is not intended and should not be understood or interpreted to be financial advice. The hosts, guests, and production staff of Bank Chats expressly recommend that you seek advice from a trusted financial professional before making financial decisions. The hosts of Bank Chats are not attorneys, accountants, or financial advisors, and the program is simply intended as one source of information. The podcast is not a substitute for a financial professional who is aware of the facts and circumstances of your individual situation. Thank you for listening. Please check out our full library of episodes, which can be found on the AmeriServ.com website. You can also download or stream the podcast from your favorite podcast app.